He was forced to be her slave for a long 100 years, but not the kind of slave to fetch coffee. It's exactly what you're thinking, day after day of various mischiefs. But this guy is no pushover. He's incredibly powerful and intelligent. So, are you ready to follow this story with me? Let's go! Our protagonist's name is Han, and he's so awesome that his soul is the ancient soul of chaos, and that's why this beauty has kept him trapped for 100 years. Her name is Yang, and she's an extremely powerful empress who wants the essence of Han's soul. But Han doesn't want to give it up because if she devours his essence, he dies. So, she has imprisoned him and plays tricks on him every day to absorb a little of his soul. And I know what you're thinking, my friend, that maybe it would be worth it for someone as beautiful as her? Well, the thing is, our protagonist is sneaky, crafty, and smart. In other words, he's the clever one here. He tells Yang that if she takes off his chains, he will dedicate his entire life to practicing dual cultivation with her and fully satisfy her. Yes, that kind of dual cultivation. She thinks that if she continues taking his essence by force, chances of condensing the true soul of chaos are very low. But if he gives it to her voluntarily, the soul will come in its full form, and she'll be able to cultivate the powers of the 3 previous gods connected to the soul. This would allow her to transform into 3 souls and have 3 lives. So, she agrees and quickly removes his chains. But this is all part of our protagonist's plan. He waits for her to turn around, then charges up his hand and strikes her in the back, the impact throwing him far away from her. Yang is surprised by his power and asks if he had been cultivating his soul in secret. Han says he always wanted to escape. At first, the pranks were fun, but after 100 years, anyone would want to run away from her. During those 100 years, he cultivated his soul solely for this moment. And let's be honest here, Empress Yang is tough. The guy punched a hole in her chest, and she healed herself and is now angry. She asks if Han really thought he could kill her just because he cultivated his soul. But Han doesn't want to kill her, he just wants to get out of there. He runs, but in a matter of seconds, she catches up to him. However, Han cuts off part of his soul to open a portal to another world and escape from her. Empress Yang is left there, furious, saying she'll find him over the course of 1,000 years and use him again. I know what you're thinking again, cheeky. Then, the scene cuts to our protagonist lying on the ground. He wakes up and starts boasting about having escaped, saying that one day he'll return to that castle and destroy everything. Suddenly, a woman appears behind him and asks why he's still alive. Then, the old memories of that body come flooding back, showing that the previous owner of the body was in love with this woman, named Lin. She is a member of one of the 3 great families in the city, and since he had no talent for cultivation, she never took him seriously. A month ago, she seduced him into stealing the medical recipe from his family and giving it to her. Afterward, she poisoned him, and he died, leaving the protagonist to take over the body when he crossed into this world. The protagonist laments for the previous owner of the body, thinking he was in love with a treacherous woman and ended up being poisoned by her. While he's feeling sorry, she says that since he didn't die, she'll kill him herself. She claims her reputation will be ruined if anyone finds out, and that his death is necessary. Han thinks she's a pretty girl but with the heart of a snake, feeling pity for the former owner of the body. Then a guy shows up, saying he had ordered Han's death and wants to know why he's still alive. He hugs the treacherous woman and tells Han that she's his wife now, and that'll be the last thing Han hears before he dies. But before they finish talking, Han is already running. However, he collapses against a tree because the body is too weak. The previous owner never did anything to strengthen it. The other 2 quickly catch up to him. Meanwhile, a woman on horseback approaches from the opposite direction, and as Han is in her path, she halts the horse abruptly. She asks Han if he has a death wish, stepping in front of her horse like that. But Han doesn't answer, he's admiring the woman's beauty. Her name is Yen. The other 2 finally catch up to Han, but Yen asks them what they're doing chasing a man with swords in hand when fighting is prohibited within Shui City. Yen is very strict when it comes to the law. The guy tries to take advantage of this, saying Han is a traitor to the Jiang family and stole a medicinal recipe. Now they're pursuing him to capture and punish him. Yen looks at Han and asks if he's the infamous and abominable Han. She says that if he betrayed his family, he should return to face punishment. But our protagonist is sly, folks. He begins to act for Yen, saying that he was in love with Lin, who used that love to trick him into stealing the family recipe and then tried to kill him with poison. Our protagonist puts on a pitiful face and admits to stealing, saying he'll never forget his mistake. But how could Lin live with herself, knowing she used love for such cruel acts? I'm telling you guys, this protagonist is as cunning as they come. The other guy tries to attack our protagonist, shouting that everything he says is a lie. But our silver-haired goddess stops the sword with one hand. Yen declares that she will take Han to the Jiang family so the elders can decide his fate, but for now, no one is to touch him. The guy still tries to argue, saying the royal family wants to marry Yen to the prince, and soon he'll become the prince's assistant, so he asks Yen not to interfere. Meanwhile, our protagonist in the background is muttering that their lousy family has no place in the palace, and that the lord would never marry his daughter to someone like that. Well, from what I understand, Yen is the daughter of the city lord, and she's promised to marry a prince of the kingdom. Obviously, the side character gets all frustrated and says he's going to kill Han right now. Yen summons her sword, and a powerful aura pushes everyone back. Lin comments that Yen is in the third layer and wonders why she's so strong, even though they're the same age. Meanwhile, the protagonist is mocking them, telling them to try to kill him. Lin is fuming with rage, especially since the protagonist is standing behind Yen, still mocking them. But we all know, guys, this is on purpose. He's doing this to get under their skin and make Yen turn against them. I'm telling you, this protagonist is pure trickery. The side character asks why Yen is protecting Han, saying his family works for the governor. But before he can finish, Princess Yen yells at them to disappear. And, of course, they're not going to disobey her, unless they want to be roasted alive. Before leaving, the side character warns that Yen won't protect Han forever and that he'll come after him. Then the two leave, and the protagonist is still mocking them as always. But Yen points her sword at him and says she's taking him to the Jiang family. However, Han knows that even if he tells the truth, he'll still be punished for stealing the medicinal recipe. And as we already know, our cunning protagonist, always full of tricks, tells Yen that he knows a way to stop her from marrying that guy. Yen gets interested and tells Han to continue. The scene then cuts to Yen's home, where her father is furious, saying he won't approve of her marrying a useless person with no talent for cultivation. Her mother argues that the marriage is an important event and she can't let emotions get in the way. And our protagonist is just there in the background, watching the scene. The Lord tells his daughter that the county governor has sent troops to strengthen ties, and they should arrive in their city of Shui within 3 days. By the way, Shui is the city they're in now, governed by Yan's father, and by tradition, only the man has the right to cancel the marriage. If they refuse, it will give the governor a valid reason to send troops to the city. Now we flash back to a few minutes ago when Han said he knew a way to stop her from marrying. He proposes that she marry him instead. She says it wouldn't be a bad idea to marry someone, but why, out of all people, would she marry him? Han explains that he's an idiot and useless, which is exactly why this is the best reason. The prince wouldn't lower himself to send troops after a woman who married a worthless man who poses no threat. Han emphasizes that if the prince did this, it wouldn't just be the nobles laughing at him, but the entire city. Yen thinks it over, realizing that if she really wants to get out of the arranged marriage with the prince, this might be her only option. No one else would have the courage to marry her and risk offending the prince, who we now know is named Shitzi. And these names are getting worse and worse. So, Yen agrees to Han's proposal to marry him. We then return to the present, where Yen confronts her father, asking him to cancel the marriage with Shitzi and let her marry Han instead. The Lord says he can't accept her marrying someone as useless as Han. Yen tells her father that this is the best option, and he knows it. She explains that the governor is very ambitious, and if she marries Shitzi, their city will turn into a military base and will soon be absorbed by the county. Through her thoughts, we understand why she agreed to marry Han. She thinks to herself that if she can protect her family in the city of Shui, she would even sacrifice her body to do so. Seeing Yen's determination, Han realizes he misjudged her. He thought she was just a pretty face, but now he's impressed by her resolve. The Lord is speechless and regrets it because what Yen said is true. However, he still doesn't like the idea of her marrying Han, as he sees him as a useless man with no cultivation talent. Then Han steps in, calls the Lord father-in-law, and says he'll take care of Yen, promising to destroy anyone who dares to irritate her. The Lord, still furious, warns Han that if he's deceiving his daughter, he will face one of the worst possible deaths. Still angry, the Lord walks outside and orders his servants to prepare the wedding for tomorrow. The ceremony will be held in the main palace, and despite the short notice, he won't tolerate any mistakes. Later on, Han is cultivating and strengthening his weak body. Thanks to the Chaos Soul, he's able to practice the abilities of the three ancient gods, allowing him to control 3 souls with a single heart, which accelerates his cultivation speed. This, by the way, is exactly what the Empress who imprisoned our protagonist wanted. When Han finishes his cultivation, his body releases a burst of air pressure, and he remarks that he has jumped straight to the 6th layer. In other words, he's now twice as strong as Yen, who made those 2 scoundrels run off when she was only in the 3rd layer. From what I understand, the higher the layer, the stronger you are. Suddenly, a woman appears, calling him master and asking him to get dressed. This is the maid Xiang. She asks Han not to waste time chatting with her because the bathtub he's using is Yan's favorite, and she needs to clean it so Yan can get ready. Xiang urges Han to hurry up and prepare for the wedding. She emphasizes that even though the ceremony was rushed, everyone in the city was invited, and it couldn't be postponed. Han says this won't be a simple ceremony. It will put on a good show for everyone. As he leaves, he thinks to himself that he's still very weak and needs to get stronger to protect himself until the Empress finds him. He mentions that compared to the world he came from, this one has a very low concentration of energy. We then get a quick explanation of how martial arts work in this world. They are divided into 7 realms: the realm of Qi compilation, the realm of soul fusion, the small master realm, the great master realm, the sage realm, the saint realm, and finally, the ascension realm. Each realm is divided into 9 levels, and only after advancing through all 9 can one break through to the next realm. The Empress Yang is someone who has already traversed all the levels. So, our protagonist is really weak compared to the Empress, especially since he had to split his soul to escape her, meaning he now has to get stronger quickly. Alright, the next day, the entire city attended the ceremony. Everyone was curious, wondering who the new son-in-law would be, with some people saying they couldn't find any information about him. And then, the 2 troublemakers arrive at the ceremony. One of them is Lin's father. And by the way, I realized Lin is the family name. Her real name is Jiaqian, but I think we'll stick with Lin. The other guy, whose name hasn't been mentioned yet, is from the Zhang family, so I'll call him Zhang. Okay, they comment that the table for Han's family is empty because they are ashamed of what Han did, so they didn't attend the ceremony. Lin says she doesn't know who the groom is. Zhang's father says that must be a lie because Shitzi is still on the road, and it's impossible for anyone to go against him. He reinforces that the city lord is too afraid to cancel the wedding. Then, the leader of the Lin family suggests it might be Zhao. He heard that Yan and Zhao are childhood friends. Zhang replies that the prince has already dealt with Zhao and discarded him, but at Yan's request, Zhao decided to stay in the city as the leader of a small group of soldiers. Lin's father says Zhao has a strong and cruel personality, but he wouldn't go against the prince. However, as everyone knows, the prince hasn't arrived in the city of Shui yet. Zhang's father says that if that's the case, Zhao will definitely be furious when he finds out Yan isn't marrying the prince and didn't choose him to be her groom. And before Zhang's father finishes speaking, someone bursts in, destroying everything in their path, shouting they want to see Yan. And, as you've probably guessed, it's Zhao, guys. He starts yelling, asking who Yan's groom is and challenging him to see who's more worthy. The troublemakers are now wondering if it's really not Zhao, then who could be the groom? Zhao is fuming, punching the soldiers left and right, until the city lord, Yan's father, shouts for him to stop. Zhao greets the lord and asks why Yan decided to get married so suddenly. The lord is a bit apprehensive about answering, but he eventually says that Yan found the love of her life, and this wedding was her own decision. The lord emphasizes that Yan and Zhao were never destined to be together. Man, that really hit a sore spot, didn't it? That was unnecessary. We can all agree on that. And of course, after that, Zhao is seriously pissed. He says he'll tear everyone down if Yan doesn't show up. He demands that she tell him to his face who her new groom is. Yan appears and bluntly tells him to leave because she's already found the love of her life. Zhao says it's impossible because she's always been with him. How could she love anyone but him? Yan replies that it's true, she's found the love of her life. She adds that this is the happiest day of her life and reinforces that if Zhao isn't here to give his blessing, she'd rather he leave. Zhao, furious, declares that she's his woman, and he'll take her away at any cost. He orders his soldiers to form up and says he only helped the lord's family because of her. But since she's marrying some nobody, he has no reason to stay connected. He threatens that the Zhao family is powerful and will destroy the man bold enough to marry Yan. Everyone is murmuring, thinking maybe Yan is lying and that there's no groom. And if there is, surely he wouldn't be foolish enough to show up. Then Han shouts from the back. Everyone turns, and there he is, asking who dares to ruin his wedding. Of course, the crowd is in shock, realizing the groom is Han, the most useless and untalented guy in the city. The Lord tells Han to go back inside immediately, and Yan also asks him to go in and not get involved. But Han calmly says it's all fine and asks why this dog is barking so loudly. He reminds Zhao not to forget that he's now the son-in-law of the city lord, so every time Zhao comes here, he'll have to kneel before him. Zhao, about to explode with rage, declares he'll destroy Han right now and charges toward him. But Yan steps in with her sword, saying that from today on, Han is her fiancé. If he lives, she lives, and if he dies, she dies. So, if Zhao wants to kill him, he'll have to go through her first. Zhao is even more enraged knowing that she drew her sword to protect Han. Han, surprised to see her defending him, tells her she doesn't need to. He'll handle Zhao himself. Han then proposes a triple bet to Zhao: money, manhood, and life. If Zhao loses, he'll lose his manhood. Han adds that since Zhao's the one who proposed the bet, he can choose whatever he's good at. Zhao laughs and says they'll compete in tactics, archery, and strength. The two troublemakers are gleeful, saying Han is doomed because Zhao has been in the military for over 10 years, while Han isn't good at anything. Zhao pulls out a sack of gold, stating that he bets 10,000 gold pieces and asks if Han has money to wager. Han responds that marrying the city lord's daughter costs a lot, so he doesn't have any money. The lord, who is listening from the back, grumbles that he covered all the expenses. Han then produces 7 mid-grade cultivation pills and bets all of them, asking if Zhao thinks he's betting too little. Everyone is astonished, wondering how Han got such valuable pills. Each one is extremely expensive and rare. Zhao thinks that with these pills, he could easily advance in his domain. Han says if Zhao can't bet more than 10,000, he might as well forget it. He also tells everyone that if anyone wants to help Zhao by betting on him, that's fine. The Lord is still confused, wondering how Han managed to acquire something so valuable. Meanwhile, the troublemaker families raise their hands, each betting 20,000 on Zhao. Everyone thinks that acquiring those pills will be too easy. Han then says it's still not enough and asks who else wants to bet. Zhang bets an additional 10,000 on Zhao, and his father, angry, says that 30,000 is their entire reserve. Zhang reassures him, saying Han will definitely lose. Then Zhang's father raises his hand and bets the 30,000. Zhao promises that those who bet against Han will be very well rewarded. The first duel starts, and it's a tactical battle. People are surprised, wondering how this will work out. Yen asks why Han's soldiers seem so down. The Lord explains that the soldiers think Han is a complete fool, and since they were chosen to be commanded by Han, this is the result. Yen is genuinely worried about Han. She doesn't want him to get hurt. Meanwhile, others are discussing the pills they will win, saying they were the easiest to obtain. The Lord orders the battle to begin. Zhao commands his soldiers to attack using a formation called Serpent, which is extremely powerful and can kill the enemy quickly while maintaining defense. Zhang tells his father not to worry, as if Han wins, he will call him Grandpa because it's impossible for him to win. But what no one knows is that this Han isn't the same as they know. Han orders his soldiers to raise their shields, and they quickly form a barrier blocking all sides. Zhao remarks that this tactic is mediocre and will be broken quickly. The Lord says it's all lost, and Han is doomed. But Yen says that's wrong and asks the Lord to observe again. All the attacks are being blocked. Zhao's soldiers can't advance. Zhao, furious, demands to know how this is possible and how their barrier hasn't been broken. Yen explains that this formation is an ancient technique known as the turtle shell. The troublemakers are impressed that Han has this knowledge. Zhang says it can't be. The famous turtle shell technique isn't something someone like Han should know. Zhao, nearly exploding with rage, orders his soldiers to attack again. Han leaves a gap, and Zhao thinks he'll manage to hit him. But as soon as the soldiers attack, Han commands his soldiers to change formation. Yen explains that this is another well-known formation called the Royal Dragon, which can attack from all sides while defending. Han points his spear at Zhao and declares that he's lost. Han thinks that all those years reading in the Empress's palace while imprisoned were not in vain. And obviously, the spectators who bet against Han are now in a panic because 30,000 is a lot of money. Han sarcastically thanks them for the money, and Zhang accuses Han of cheating, saying there's no way he could win fairly. Zhang's father then punches him, asking if he hasn't been embarrassed enough. He turns to the Lord and says they've found a great son-in-law and that Han won fairly. Now, I think I'll stop calling them the troublemaker family because it seems like the father has some honor, unlike the son. Han gives the Lord the 7 pills, all the money, and 10 martial arts books as a wedding gift. He's won over the father-in-law and has the final blessing. Yen notices that the martial arts books seem new, as if they were recently written. She smiles at Han, realizing that he has potential. Lin thinks that Han had been hiding a lot of skills and that she was wrong to underestimate him. Zhao tells Han that there are still 2 rounds left. Han tells him not to rush and turns to the Lord's wife, his mother-in-law, asking if they should continue with the other 2 rounds, since Zhao is her nephew and she might not want him to die. Ah, now I understand why Zhao and Yen grew up together even though they're from different families. The mother-in-law says Han doesn't need to worry about her and tells him to fight as he wishes. Han is relieved since his concern was whether she might hold a grudge against him for Zhao being her nephew. Now that he sees she doesn't care, he's free to go all out. The second round begins with archery. People are impressed, noting that Zhao's bow is the blood rhinoceros bow, which requires a lot of brute strength to use. Once again, the spectators are betting that Han will definitely lose since Zhao is known as the best archer and Han is only in the second layer of cultivation. Yen is worried, realizing this is why Zhao wanted to continue. The round starts, and a stone plate is thrown into the air. Zhao draws his bow and shoots, perfectly hitting the target. Zhao starts boasting about breaking the stone plate with one arrow. Han makes a mocking face and says Zhao is just an amateur, and he could do that while getting Yen pregnant. Even Yen feels embarrassed and calls him an idiot. Zhao, fed up with the delay, throws the bow to Han. Han struggles to hold it and comments that it's a beautiful bow, made from the horns of a blood rhinoceros and the string from tendons. He says he doesn't want to use it because he's afraid of breaking it and having to pay for it. Zhao laughs and says Han doesn't have the strength to even crush an ant, let alone use such a bow. He adds that if the bow breaks, he will kneel before Han. Han then draws the string, and the bow snaps in half. Of course, the spectators claim Han must have cheated. Han says he knew they wouldn't admit defeat, so he asks for the stone bow to be brought out. The Lord explains that this bow is made from the hardest stone in the world and the string is made from the tendons of the king cobra. It's a treasure of the palace. Lin asks her if Han really knows how to use a bow. Lin replies she's never seen him use a bow, and even if he does, she doesn't believe he can handle the stone bow. Han draws 3 arrows at once and shoots at a rock, breaking it into several pieces. Someone asks which arrows hit, but a soldier confirms all 3 hit the target. The Lord declares Han the winner. Once again, everyone is in shock. Zhao's defeat has shaken his confidence. He looks at the arrows, wondering how it's possible, while people grumble about how foolish it was to bet on Zhao thinking he would win. Remember, in the second round, the loser loses their manhood? So, Han is ready to collect. He points an arrow at Zhao and shoots. Zhao manages to catch the arrow, but it's not enough. The bet is divided, and Han claims his victory, 1 manhood down. Zhao, now enraged, charges at Han with a fury, vowing to make him suffer until death. Han says that with Zhao's level of power, he's just a pathetic loser. They clash, creating a wave of energy around them. Spectators are stunned, saying it's impossible because Han is in the second layer and Zhao is in the 9th. But if you pay attention, Han is already in the 6th layer from just 1 cultivation session in the bathhouse. Yen realizes Han is far superior and shouts for Zhao to retreat, but Zhao insists he will eliminate Han and make Yen his wife. Han lands a direct punch on Zhao, sending him flying. Zhao asks if Han isn't in the second layer. Han releases a powerful energy, and everyone realizes Han is actually in the 6th layer. Zhao says that the 6th layer is still low and vows to kill him today. Han, now in the second layer, advances to Zhao and hits him in the stomach, then strikes his face, sending him flying meters into the air. While Zhao is still in the air, Han jumps and hits him with his heel, slamming him hard into the ground. It's over. Everyone is stunned by what's happening. Zhao, the great and powerful commander, has been easily defeated by someone known as useless and untalented. Zhang screams that it's impossible, asking how someone in the second layer could advance so quickly to the 6th layer and defeat someone in the 9th layer. Zhang's father hits him again, saying he's already embarrassed enough. He tells Zhang that Han isn't just anyone, he's not someone to be underestimated. Han says he will explain so everyone understands. While placing his foot on Zhao's face, he takes off his shirt and asks everyone if they understand now. Zhang comments that Han forced his meridians to the point of explosion. These marks indicate that Han's meridians have exploded, which gives him extra strength but means he can no longer cultivate and won't be able to evolve further. Zhang starts laughing, saying that Han is very foolish for exploding his meridians just to advance from the second layer. Now it's clear, Han has reached his limit and will not evolve any further. Zhang's father briefly thought Han was someone remarkable, but now he realizes there's no need to worry about him. Yen wonders why Han used such an extreme method just to become a bit stronger. Then Han delivers the final blow and eliminates Zhao. In truth, no one believed Han would actually have the courage to kill Zhao, but the Han they knew no longer exists. Han tells Yen that they can now proceed with the wedding. Yen agrees but is still impressed that he really killed Zhao. Lin is thinking that she was deceived by Han all along, pretending to be weak and useless, but now it doesn't matter since his meridians are destroyed, and he won't be anything more than that. The wedding ceremony officially begins. According to Chinese culture, red clothing symbolizes happiness for the couple. To become officially engaged, they must first bow to the heavens, then to their parents, and finally to each other. Thus, they are officially married. Imagine marrying someone like this, pretty sad, right? Well, after the wedding, our protagonist is eager to enjoy the honeymoon, but Yen interrupts him, saying that he surprised her today, proving he's not useless and has courage. She then asks why he killed Zhao, pointing out that Zhao's family will not forgive him. She reinforces that Han exploded his own meridians, which means he has suffered 2 defeats. The protagonist pulls her by the waist and explains that many people witnessed the wedding. Now that his meridians are damaged, the Lin and Zhang families will take strict precautions against Yan's family and will likely cooperate with the county. When that moment arrives, they will underestimate Yan's family. Han emphasizes that he exploded his meridians so everyone would continue to think he's just a useless person, allowing them to retaliate without anyone expecting it. Yen reflects that she never imagined Han would harm himself in consideration of her family. She holds his hand between her airbags and thanks him. She reassures him that even with his damaged meridians, he is still her husband, and she will protect him. The protagonist feels a bit awkward after this, admiring Yan's determination. Besides, he can rebuild his meridians whenever he wants, so it was never truly a problem. Yen then realizes she's holding his hand and gives a little slap, turning her head. We have a tsundere here, folks? So, do you ship these two or not? Comment to let me know. This chapter showed that Yen might genuinely care for the protagonist and that it's not just a marriage of convenience. But we'll find out more as the story progresses.